Promise what you're about to tell the court will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, under pain and penalty of perjury.
Yes, Your
Please
Honor.
have a seat. Once you're comfortable in your chair, can you tell me who you are and how you spell your name?
My name is David Lacy, D-A-V-I-D. Last name Lacy, L-A-C-Y.
All right, thank you. State.
Thank you, Judge. David, how do you know Deja Lacy?
She's my daughter.
Okay. Is she your only child?
Yes.
And did you raise her from the time she was a baby?
Yes.
Okay. I want to talk to you about Deja's children. How many children has she had?
She had a total of 4.
Okay. And are you a part of her grandchildren's lives?
A certain degree. Out of all the grandchildren, the one I'm closest with is Grace, because of the fact that at that time she was living with me. So we went through the whole pregnancy all the way up to birth. Same thing with Tylese, the first child. She was living with me at the time all the way up to birth. So that situation is a little bit different. Why I don't have a close relationship with her, because her father has her.
And that's Tylese.
That's Tylese.
How old is Tylese?
Tylese, we're going on 13 now.
And so Tylese lives with her father.
Yes.
But when she was a baby, you had more contact with her?
Yeah, because like I said, Deja was living with me at the time, and so during that time, you know, I did have Tylese because we were living under the same roof. Yeah.
Okay. And then you mentioned Grace. So when Grace came along, Deja again moved in with you.
Yeah.
Okay. And then her next child, what is that child's name?
The next child after that would be Julius Jr.
Okay. And you said you aren't as close with him. Is his father also present in his life?
Well, was because of the Julius Jr., the father, or to be father we thought was a part of his life also until the DNA proved otherwise. And during that time, he did have a lot of contact with Julius Jr. and we also at the time, because of the time that Deja had him, and to spend time with the assumed dad at the time. So I did kind of have a relationship with him, but on that situation, because I didn't know that she was pregnant until a few weeks before she was getting ready to give birth. So that kind of set a different precedence of being close to that child too.
With Julius?
Yes.
Okay. So safe to say sometimes Julius would be with his dad and you would get Grace and spend time with her?
Yes.
Okay. Now I want to talk about Alana Lacy, who's also your granddaughter. When did you learn about Alana Lacy?
Wow. When I ended up finding out about her was the day she was born.
Okay.
So I had no idea, no clue at all until I want to say it was my niece actually told my mom that Deja has given birth to another child. And at that time, my mom, she called me. I was at work finding this information out, and I'm floored. I'm like, I had no idea, no clue about anything. So I was like, well, I wanted to wait until Deja called and tell me to let me know this information. And it was several weeks before I even found that out when she called on me about Alana.
Okay. So you said several weeks after she was born, Deja finally called you and let you know that she had had another baby.
Yes.
I want to direct your attention to August 29th of 2022. On that date, had you had the opportunity to meet Alana yet?
No.
Okay.
At that time, we had a prior conversation that Grace was like, hey, will you come see your granddaughter? And this was...
Grace or Deja?
I'm sorry, I'm in Deja. And at this time, my reaction was, it's been this long before you even mentioned her to me. I mean, wait till this weekend is not going to be, a couple more days, it's not going to be, a big deal. And that's the way I looked at it. So I was going to visit her that upcoming weekend, but this situation happened.
Okay. Where was Deja living on August 29th of 2022?
She was staying in one of our family property. We do have some rental homes, and she was staying in one of them.
Okay. Was she paying rent to stay there?
No, but it was supposed to be a setup to make payment arrangements, but none of that has really ever fell through.
Okay.
So, like I say, my mom is right now the property owner, so it was one of those things that we knew she didn't have a place to stay, so we just kind of dealt with it that way.
Okay. Let her stay there?
Yes.
Instead of in the past, she'd moved in with you?
Exactly.
Okay. And did you receive a call from Deja on that day?
Yes.
When she called you, can you describe that conversation?
The day when she called me to let me know of Alana passing away, the way it came across me, I thought it was a joke because it just didn't sound like it was a urgent thing at first. But after the conversation went on, I was like, well, maybe she might be serious, and it kind of floored me because I'm like, this doesn't even sound right. So I was actually working. Actually, my job from where the property is was only like maybe a 7-minute, drive from there to where she was staying.
Okay. So did you go to the house?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And when you arrived, what was going on there?
About the time I got there, it was already a crowd of people there, coroner, police officers. Everyone's already on the scene. Something I might have been the last one that got this phone call to arrive on the scene. So the time I got there, of course, they didn't let me enter the house. They was like, well, the detective will come out to speak to you in a few minutes. And at that time, I think when I met Detective Hackley at the time, it kind of gave me an idea what was going on and how what the situation was.
Were there some other people there too, like some friends or?
Yeah.
How did you eventually see Deja that day?
It was after, I think, the coroner, whatever all the information that the detectives was needing to speak to her about before they let her come outside, before the coroner was able to remove Alana from the house. She was, surrounded by her friends and also me, and her reaction of what she was saying was kind of off footing, so to speak, because she kept saying, I killed my baby, and, crying, I'll kill my baby. And so we kind of tried to wait a minute, we don't know exactly what happened yet. Let's kind of, wait until we find out exactly what happened. But of course, we try to console her to calm her down. Yeah.
So that day, ultimately, did Grace come to stay with you after that?
Yes, because at the time, the kids went into CPS custody. And that's when Jennifer was kind of like, hey, who are they going to go to,
Can I just stop you right there? Who's Jennifer to you?
Jennifer's my fiance.
Okay.
Yeah, so we were seeing if we can try to get, Grace instead of putting her into a guardian's home, so to speak. So,
since Grace has been living with you, so she's been living with you since this day in August. And
yes.
They were formally removed not till January, but she's been with you the time.
Yes.
Has Grace made statements to you about what happened to Alana?
Yes.
And in those instances, you don't have to say what she said, but can you just describe kind of the setting in which she made statements to you and then how you responded?
Okay. Actually, we were sitting around coloring and watching TV, and we just kind of having just a general conversation. And out of mid-conversation, she brought up what she saw or what happened in the house. So I just kind of paused, didn't ask her to repeat it. I was just kind of taken back. And during that time, I just kind of held to myself until I put her to bed, and then I called Jennifer and was like, hey, she basically kind of told me what she has spoken to you about and left it at that.
Okay. So, at the time she said it to you, she had already made some statements to Jennifer. Do you remember approximately when the statements she made to you were?
It was actually a few weeks later after she's spoken to Jennifer and kind of said basically the same thing.
And you said you didn't ask her to repeat it, you just kind of let it alone.
Yes.
Why was that your reaction?
I felt because her being so young, I don't want to seem like I was kind of pushing her to say something that maybe traumatic. And I just felt if something like that she feels comfortable in saying it, I want to feel comfortable repeating it again if necessary, or get it off her chest to let me know, to make her feel better, so to speak. Because if that's something that's weighing on her mind to even say it, I don't want to feel like that I was forcing her to say something that I just didn't want it to come across like I was pushing her to talk what happened.
We kind of touched on this a little bit at the beginning, but how often would you help Deja out with watching the kids, or help her out with things that she would need?
That was one of the things that we discussed with her, and so that Jennifer was like, anytime you need to have a break, you can always call us. We can help you out with the kids. Actually, Jennifer was doing more than what I had realized when it came to buying groceries and things like that. Because actually, her whole entire life, I had tried to help her to the best of my ability. But at the same time, you're an adult. You should be able to take care of yourself also. But whenever she was really in a bind, because I actually got to the point I just stopped giving her any money, but then Jennifer, I find out later, was giving her things that I was worried about, because I feel that if you have people who keep offering and doing things for you, you're not going to want to do it for yourself, because you know it's easier than ask to do it. So, but when it comes to the kids, whenever she needed a break, we always came and got Grace, and Julius most of the time was with his dad on those certain occasions when we went to go get Grace.
I don't have anything for you, Judge.
You may pause.
Thank you. Mr. Lacey, I first want to talk to you about your relationship with Grace. Grace is the grandchild that you're the closest to. Would that be fair?
Yes.
Okay. And that was even before all this happened, you were closest to Grace.
Yes.
And Grace came home from the hospital to your house, right?
Yes.
And you were with Grace through infancy.
During the pregnancy, all the way until the day of birth until now, yes.
Okay. And even when Deja moved out of your house with Grace, you and Jennifer still got Grace all the time.
Yes.
Okay. I do want to talk to you about that day you came to, I first want to talk to you about Alana, and you didn't meet Alana right away, is that correct?
I haven't met her, period.
You never met her. You did have plans to meet her that next weekend after this incident, is that right?
Yes, I had plans to actually meet her that upcoming weekend.
Okay. And so you and Deja had scheduled that, is that right? Is that fair?
No, we have not scheduled that.
Okay, that's just something in your mind you were going to meet her that
Yes.
night. But she had asked you at some point, why don't you come meet your granddaughter?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
And then, before you're able to meet her, you get this phone call from Deja.
Yes.
And as a result of that phone call, you come to the house. And that's yes.
Yes.
Okay. And that's a house that your family owns.
Yes.
Okay. And when you get there, you aren't able to get to Deja right away.
No.
You are kind of waiting outside with friends and family for detectives and coroners to finish their investigation.
Exactly, yes.
And when Deja finally is able to come out of the house and be around you, she said in front of you and other friends and family, I killed my baby, I killed my baby.
Yes.
Okay. And so at that point, you knew in some way she felt responsible for the death of Alana.
That's the way I took it, yes.
Okay. On that day, Grace didn't come home with you permanently on that day, is that correct?
No, it was later on that evening.
Okay. And so, actually later on that evening, Jennifer went and picked her up, is that correct?
Yes.
And she stayed with you guys that night,
Yes.
but eventually she did go back into Deja's care.
No.
She never went home after you picked her up that night.
No, at the time, well, I guess you're right. Yes.
Okay.
Because it was a 6-month period before the arrest came. Yes.
So she actually did go back home to mom for 6 months until she got arrested, is that correct?
Yes.
And then on the day that she got arrested, that's when Grace went into DCS custody.
Yes.
And that's when you and Jennifer took actual custody of Grace.
Correct. Yes.
You talked a little bit at the end of your testimony about Deja and kind of how you supported her for most of her life, is that correct?
Yes.
And you were supporting her by giving her money, giving her a place to live, those kind of things.
Yes.
And eventually you, as dad, said, like, that's enough, you need to stand on your own 2 feet.
Yes.
And unbeknownst to you, Jennifer is still helping her out financially.
Yes.
Okay. And though even when you stopped giving her money, you were still getting Grace and taking care of Grace.
Yes.
Okay. And although DCS didn't actually take the kids in that 6-month time period, you and Jennifer still had Grace a lot during that period.
Yes.
Still giving breaks to mom and things like that.
Whenever she needed. Yes.
Okay. And that would include overnights and things like that.
Yes. Or weekends. Yes.
So entire weekend sometimes she would be with you.
Yes.
Nothing further, thank you, Judge.
Nothing on that page.
Sir, when Grace told you what she had seen, did you ask her any details after that?
No, sir.
I mean, for example, did you ask her to show you what she saw?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Well, you said that Deja called you, and you took it as a joke. What was it about either her demeanor or what she said that made you feel that way?
She has said certain things before there was a serious matter, and then it's like, I'm just joking. And so it wasn't uncommon to have a kind of, I want to say a morbid joke, but a joke that was a serious matter and find out later it was just a joke. And that's the way I took it.
Okay. It was based on what specifically she said, but just based upon her general demeanor about other things?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. When you were surrounded with Deja and her friends, do you recall her saying anything more or different than from "I killed my baby"?
No, Your Honor. It was just more or less that it was she was kind of distraught and was kind of just saying that, and everyone around her was basically kind of like consoling her. It was like, well, we don't know if it was your fault, saying moments of prayer, try to make the little situation as calm as possible.
Okay. Questions on court, questions state?
Yes. David, what did Grace say to you? And I think it would come in as a prior consistent statement. Grace has testified.
You're going to need to mumble louder.
I think it would come in as a prior consistent statement. Grace has testified. They had the opportunity opportunity to cross-exam, impeach her, and now the her consistent statement can come in.
Defense, argument, response?
I think that, I'm sorry, Judge, I have to look at the rule. It's, there has to be a recent fabrication, and I don't think that that has come up for the prior consistent statement.
I'll overrule the objection. You may answer.
Like I was mentioning earlier, we were sitting around coloring and watching TV and just having just a general conversation. And she was like, Papa, I seen my mommy take a pillow and put it over the baby's face to get her to stop crying. And that's basically the broad statement. I just kind of, like I said, taken back. And I was like, I know she just didn't say what I thought she just said. And like I said, at the time, I didn't want her to repeat it because it was just out of the blue that she said that comment. And then it got to the point where I think she felt comfortable in explaining what she saw, and she has mentioned it more than once to me, and it's never changed. It's always been that same situation that she was like, the baby was crying, mommy was trying to get the baby to stop crying, and I seen her put the pillow over the baby's face to get her to stop crying.
I just have a few questions. And I do have one omitted question, if that's okay.
You may.
Sir, do you remember what time Deja called you that day?
You can take a second, okay?
Sir, would you like to take a break? Take a break.
I'm gonna go ahead and get it done.
Some water.
Okay.
Get you a glass of water here.
Yes, please. Thank you. There's more. Okay.
You okay?
Yeah, yes, Your Honor.
Ready to answer some more questions?
Yes.
Sorry.
Sir, I think the last thing I asked is what time did she call? Do you remember?
I knew it was in the AM. I was at work at the time. The approximate time, I knew it was before noon. I can tell you that much. I want to say it was around maybe between 9 and 10 a.m.
When you mentioned when the judge was asking you questions that when she came out and was talking to you and her other family members, at that time you just felt like she was distraught.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry. At that time when she came out and she was talking to you and the other family members, you felt like she was distraught at that time.
Of course. Yes.
And you also made a statement to the judge concerning some jokes that sometimes Deja says. Does she have like a morbid sense of humor or a weird affect around morbid things?
No, I wouldn't say it's not just the morbid joke. It was just more or less that she'll take like a serious situation for one incident, which I never find out it was a YouTube thing about I ran over somebody and I threw their body in the trunk. Could you help me hide the body? And it found out later it was a YouTube thing to see what your parents' reaction was going to be. Things like that.
She just does have some weird tendencies.
Exactly.
Okay. Nothing else, nothing further, thank you.
Sure, I want to ask you one, again, when you were describing what it was that Grace told you,
Yes.
you said something about her explaining what she saw.
Yes.
And can you elaborate any further as to what she said besides the thing about taking the pillow and putting it over her face?
And she has mentioned after she said, "Mommy put the pillow to the baby's face," she went back to sleep because she couldn't sleep. Deja.
Deja went back to sleep.
Yes, because she said that she couldn't sleep because the baby was crying.
Tell me that again.
Grace said that Deja could not, her mom, Deja could not sleep because the baby was crying. That's why she put the pillow over the baby's face so she can go to sleep.
Okay. Did she tell you any more?
No.
Did she indicate whether the baby stopped crying at that point?
No.
Okay. Questions on the court's questions, Dave?
No.
Defense?
No.
Okay. May he be excused?
Yes.
Thank you.
State will call Jennifer Armstrong next.
Could you raise your hand for me? You promise was about to tell the court to be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, under pain and penalty of perjury?
Yes.
All right, please have a seat. When you're comfortable in your chair, can you please tell me who you are and how you spell your name?
Jennifer Armstrong, and it's Jennifer. Armstrong, Armstrong.
State.
Thank you, Judge. You can move the microphone closer to you to help pick up your voice. Jennifer, how are you employed?
I work at Eskenazi.
And what do you do at Eskenazi?
I'm the manager of physician recruitment.
Sure. I'm a little hard of hearing. Do you mind
sorry.
getting the microphone a little closer to you?
I'm the manager of physician recruitment.
Much better, thank you.
You're welcome.
Who do you live with?
David Lacey and Grace Lacey.
How do you know David Lacey?
It's my fiance.
How long have you been with David?
2018.
Since 2018?
I mean, we split up briefly, but yeah.
And you said you live with Grace Lacey.
Yes.
Is that David's granddaughter?
Yes.
Does David have a daughter?
Yes.
Who's David's daughter?
Deja.
Do you know Deja?
Yes.
When did you first meet David?
In 2018.
Can you tell us about the time you first met her?
The first time?
Yes.
It was actually our first date, and she called David, and it came up. Sorry. It's really hard seeing her like this.
Okay, take your time, okay?
There's water right in front of you.
Sorry. She called him and was crying, and she was pregnant and said that the guy she was seeing, which is Grace's dad, had hit her and threw her outside. And she was obviously upset. I'm like, we're canceling everything. Obviously, we need to go get your daughter.
Okay, and so at that time, Deja was pregnant with Grace.
Yes,
And at that point, did you start building a relationship with Deja?
I did.
And what was your relationship like with her when she was pregnant?
We got really close. I mean, when she left his house that day, he gave her nothing, so I got her clothes, and we moved her into David's house. I had my own house still that time. I mean, that was our first date. So, I mean, I helped her. I've been recruiting for a long time, so I helped her get a job, a few jobs, whatever I could do to support her.
Fair to say you were fairly involved in her life when she was pregnant with Grace then.
Yes.
And then when Grace was born, what was your involvement like then?
I mean, I was in the delivery room with her, so we were very involved from beginning.
And after Deja had Grace, did you help her figure out a place to live other than with David?
Yeah, so at that point, Deja and I were engaged, and we were building a home. And David's mom had a rental that was open. People were moving out. So we started working kind of simultaneously on getting that house together for her and the baby. David and I were kind of just buying everything new because we were building a new house. So we were just getting her, you know, kind of putting the best of each of our houses together to try to, you know, furnish her home and make it comfortable for her and the baby.
And was that a home that you were getting ready for her on the Burton Avenue?
Yes.
We've heard that Deja has an older daughter before Grace. How often would you see that daughter?
I saw Lily 3 or 4 times at the beginning of David and I.
Did Lele live with her dad?
Yes, she lives with her dad.
So you didn't have a close connection with that child?
No, I mean, I didn't have access, so I got to see her when David or Deja would get her.
And so you're getting the house together. Is Deja working? You said you tried to get her a couple of jobs.
So a good friend and colleague of mine was working staffing agency at the time. So she worked for one place. They had multiple contracts. So I would say probably 4 or 5, maybe guesstimating places that she had worked.
And did any of them become long-term?
No.
So what was Deja doing for money?
So I mean, the house was paid for, so she was obviously, I mean, she was supposed to be paying rent, but I don't, you know, it was her grandmother, so she got some forgiveness there. I mean, she really, I think, just had utilities. I would help with food, or if she needed money, I would sneak it to her.
What do you mean sneak it to her?
Because her dad kind of forbid me from sending her money, so I would try to either just get what she needed or send groceries or give her cash because I didn't want her to struggle.
Why did your fiancé forbid you to give Deja any more money?
We just had David and I had very different experiences. I have 2 grown daughters. So for me, it was just a given that I'm going to jump in and help your daughter, right? Like, that just, like, that's what you do. Your daughter needs help. For him, I think he had been burnt throughout the years. And I told him, he warned me, he's like, you're going to get burnt, I'm telling you. And I said, well, then she's just going to have to burn me. You know, if that happens, then at least I know, but I have to at least try to give her resources and help her as much as I can.
How often would you take Grace to give her right once Grace was born?
I had Grace quite a bit. I mean, So the first, probably, so leading up to COVID, that first year, she came home with us from the hospital. So she was home with us at the beginning for a while. It would be off and on, you know, as Deja needed a break. I would take her. I travel some for work. So, you know, when I was home available, I would always keep Grace as much as possible to give her a break.
And was that kind of, you know, an unspoken thing, like, give me a call anytime you need me for Grace?
Yeah, I mean, she knew I was there.
At some point, Deja becomes pregnant with Julius Jr.
Yes.
How did you find out about Julius' pregnancy?
So we would still see Deja throughout that pregnancy. We didn't know she was pregnant. I don't know how, but like after she had Grace, like she really just didn't change much physically. So it wasn't super apparent that she was pregnant to me. And I think with Julius, I think David told me maybe like a week before, 2 weeks before he was born, she was about to have another baby. And I'm like, what? Like, it hasn't been that long. Like, are you about to have a baby? We wouldn't even know. And I've seen you, but we were not. I think she probably knew that, you know, with all the help and trying to help her get on her feet, that we wouldn't be ecstatic about it. So
after Julius was born, did you continue to help out and get Grace?
yeah, so getting Grace never stopped. We didn't get Julius much. It seemed like whenever we would pick her up or drop her off, I mean, Dave would pick up and drop off a lot because his work is close, so it was easy. We're in Zionsville, so like going downtown, he would just grab her if I wasn't at the hospital. But to me, he didn't seem like he was there very much. But I think he was also with his dad, and then there was a short time that I know, like, after he was born, Deja told me she was staying, you know, kind of in between both houses, too.
Okay.
So he just wasn't there. We didn't have access. I mean, we didn't see him a whole lot.
Julius Jr. was just often with Julius Sr., and though when you would get Grace, it was mostly just Grace.
Yeah. Yes.
Moving on, at some point, did you learn about Deja being pregnant with Alana?
Yeah, so I learned that probably a week before everything happened. I was actually in Florida, and at that time, David and I had separated. And I was still getting Grace. He would still grab Grace and bring her to me. We were still living like a mile away from each other. And I was in Florida at a conference, and David called me, and he was like, oh yeah, by the way, we have another one. And I'm like, what?
So this is after Alana's born.
Yes. So this was like the week before everything happened, maybe a week or two.
The week before Alana died.
Passed away, yes.
Okay.
And then the day I landed coming back home from my conferences, the day everything happened.
Okay. So August 29th, 2022 is the day that Alana passed away. When do you find out about that?
That she had passed away.
Yes.
So David called me from Deja's house. So like I just landed at the airport. I just gotten home.
Prior to that, had Deja been reaching out, needing your help or anything like that?
Not as much like that, but probably because she didn't want to tell me about Alana, I'm assuming. I mean, within that few weeks, not as much.
Okay. And so you get a phone call from David. Do you then talk to Deja?
No, like it was in the middle of, I think, all the kind of chaos.
Okay.
He said everybody was there and it was chaotic, and I had just landed, so you know, I said where are the kids? He said that Julius, I can't remember, somebody had already taken Julius, or was on their way to get Julius. It may have been Deja's mom. So I just tried to get out of the airport, please, so I could get Grace.
Okay. And did you go get Grace?
I did.
And what do you do with Grace?
I took her home with me.
And then the next day, do you talk with Deja?
Yes.
And tell me about that conversation.
And I may have talked to her that night, because I think I called her and let her know I'm going to grab Grace. You know, I'm on my way later. But I mean, obviously everything was so chaotic. So I think I just was like, I'm sorry, I love you, I'll call you tomorrow and grab Grace so you can deal with everything. And then we spent the next day. And of course, I'm like, what the heck happened? Like, first of all, I didn't know about her. You know, I'm just trying to diet. This is a whole lot, right? I'm trying to digest. And she said they think it's SIDS. And I'm like, SIDS? Like, you know, what the heck? And I'm like, you know, where were the kids? I'm trying to put the pieces together, right? Because David didn't really know a whole lot at that point either. And then she had mentioned propping the bottle up in Alana's mouth. And I'm like, Deja, what? And she's like, why? She's like, you've done it with Grace. And I'm like, if I'm sitting right next to her working, you can't prop a bottle up in a newborn's mouth and leave. And she's like, I was just really tired. I went and laid down for a little while. And I'm like, Deja, like, this baby probably drowned. She's probably, you know, when they do this, she's probably going to have milk in her lungs. You know, you can't do that with a newborn baby. You can't put a bottle in her mouth and just go to bed.
What was Deja's reaction when you told her that?
She was, I think it clicked, like, oh no. You know, could be a possibility. And she didn't want me to put bad mojo out there. And I said, well, it's not bad mojo, honey. I want you to be prepared that this is, like, they could find this in her autopsy. You know, if you propped a bottle up and went to bed, she could have drowned. She could have fluid, you know, milk in her lungs. I want you to be prepared on what could happen. That's a possibility.
Did you talk to Deja about drug use?
Yes, I think David may have mentioned somewhat. This is all kind of a blur on times. So somewhere in this too, David had mentioned that they had given her a test, and I told her, I'm like, you just need to tell the truth. Tell me the truth. Did you do drugs? Are you gonna? They did a drug test. We're gonna know. And she made it. She had done meth. I didn't ask like a timeline. Like at this point, this was just way too much, and I was like, I need to take care of Grace and digest some of this a lot.
So, moving forward a little bit to September 1st, 2022, do you remember that day?
Yes.
And who was at your house that day?
So that morning it was just Grace and I. I let work know I obviously needed to be working remotely for a little while until I could figure out what was going on. So I turned on cartoons for Grace, and she was sitting next to me on the couch while I was working. And then my daughter came home. So both of my daughters are really close to Grace. So my oldest daughter, Peyton, came home to check on Grace because obviously I filled her in on what was happening.
And when your oldest daughter came over, did Grace say something to you that caught you off guard?
Yes.
What did she say?
All right, overrule your objection. She may answer.
So I'm a recruiter, so I have my phone in my hand all the time. So I was texting one of my candidates to push back an interview that I had coming up, and Peyton had come in, and she was running across the room. She's like, "Hi, Gracie, baby," and jumps on her, and she's giving her a hug. And I hadn't talked to Grace about anything because I just honestly was trying to digest it myself, and I didn't know what she saw, what had happened, anything. So it really caught me off guard. She looked at Peyton, but it was like, wanted Peyton to know what she knew. I knew, I think, because I picked her up, but it was like she was wanted to make sure Peyton knew what was happening. And she said, Pepe, my baby's sister died. And Peyton said, I know, honey, I'm so sorry. You know, that's why I came home to check on you. And she said, yeah, my mommy got really mad at her. She wouldn't stop crying. And she held a pillow on her face and hit her with it. And I'm like, what? I'm like, what did you just say, Grace? And so I hit record on my phone. I don't know why I did that, but I did. I think I just had it in my hand, and I'm like, I did. And I'm like, tell me that again. What did you just say? And she said it again.
And then when she said again, you had that on video.
Yes.
After she said that, what did you do?
Well, obviously my heart, my stomach. So I immediately told Peyton to watch Grace, and I went to the garage and called David.
After talking with David, did you decide that you were going to let the authorities know about what Grace just said?
Yes,
And did you reach out to CS?
I did.
And then did you speak with Detective Hadley?
Yes.
And did you provide that video to them?
Yes.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 4. Do you recognize this disc?
Yes.
And does this disc contain the accurate video that you took of Grace on September 1st, 2022?
Yes.
The state would move to minute stage 4.
Judge, we would object to Forrest, hearsay.
I'm sorry, you object for,
As hearsay.
as a hearsay?
Yeah.
Okay. Ma'am, prior to Grace saying whatever she says on 4, had you or any adult in Grace's presence suggested anything to her, asked her about what happened that day?
I didn't, because this was just the night before, and so like it was only me, so I just took her straight home. David and I weren't even living together at the time, so it was just her and I. And by the time I got her, it was getting late, so like I put her dinner, gave her a bath, and we went straight to bed. And then this was the next day.
Okay. Was there any, can you give me any there's a video here. So my assumption is the video, what I'm seeing is something that you did after she said it the first time.
I just asked her to repeat herself
Okay.
and got it on video.
All right. Did you say anything else to her? Other than to ask her to repeat herself?
I think, well, she had said something specific the first time around, like about the video, and I was like, tell me again what happened with the pillow? I think it was something like that. And that's when she
Okay.
was.
Did you tell her in any way that what she was saying was right, wrong, good, or bad, anything like that?
No, I didn't say anything. I mean, I think I was in shock. I just was like, what? And then went and immediately called David.
All right. When you ask her to say whatever she says on the video, is what you say to her also on the video?
I think so, yeah.
Any questions on the court's questions for the exhibit itself? State,
Judge.
defense?
Not on the exhibit, Judge.
I'm sorry?
Sorry, not on the exhibit.
All right. I'll show state's 4 admitted over objection.
Permission to publish.
You may.
Just give me one moment.
Judge, I'm going to be, I don't mean to be rude, but here, Judge,
Yeah, I'm
where
listening.
do we stand on this?
She's in the video.
Either party have any, the question the media is asking is 2.17, the rules of judicial conduct prohibit the showing of victim's testimony and of testimony of the juvenile. Technically, it's not testimony, but it is the child.
I
My
would object to
inclination,
it being, I would object to it being in the record.
okay, my inclination is not to put it on the air.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. I don't.
Again, the rules here are somewhat vague, and the more we do broadcast with the media, I think we learn to do refinements. But I think in terms of the spirit of it, I think it's probably wouldn't be. So I also should indicate at this point that court is, just so the record's clear, the court is allowing this testimony in as an excited utterance, even though court recognizes it is delayed from the immediate observance. I think under case law, in terms of excited utterance, it doesn't have to be within a set period of time, and particularly since it's volunteered by a 3-year-old, the court finds the statement does have an issue of real liability such to include it in the record. I will show that over the defense objection. You may play.
Did you continue to see Deja?
I did.
What was your understanding of what was going on at that time
From which angle?
for the investigation after talking to the detective?
So, I mean, they basically informed me that this is a process. It's going to take time. to get autopsies back and to do their investigation. So we knew, there would be some time. I think that's how David and I looked at this was, hopefully just nothing comes back and everything's going to be fine and, nothing's going to come back on the autopsy and, everything will be good.
Okay, so you learned that after you gave them information, it was still in their investigation, it was gonna take some time.
Yes.
Did you tell Deja about what Grace said?
No.
Why?
Because I wanted to get Grace as much as possible. Not knowing, Grace was 3, so not knowing exactly, there were a lot of different stories being told. There were just a lot of stuff wasn't adding up, and I wanted to make sure I knew that if she knew any of this, that we would not be able to get Grace. And at that time, I knew that Julius was okay because he was with his dad all the time and with Dacia's mom at that point a lot. Her mom and I were communicating. She was keeping Julius a lot. I was keeping Grace a lot. And I think at that point, just their safety, and we want to make sure the kids were safe until this was figured out.
So fair to say you didn't want to interfere with the investigation and let Deja know about what Grace said?
Correct. There were several reasons. It just made sense not to and let things play out and keep the kids as much as possible.
At some point, was Deja arrested and then the DCS formally kind of allowed you to have Grace all the time?
Yes.
And are you in the process of adopting Grace?
Yes.
And throughout the time since that day on September 1st, have you been asking Grace any questions about what happened to her baby sister?
I don't have to. She will tell you. No, so David and I, we had talked about this a while back. We had a psychiatrist through CPS see Grace at the very beginning because, of course, her long-term well-being is the concern. And how do we handle this? What's the best way to handle this? And she basically said, listen if she wants to talk. Give her a safe space to do that. And that's if she brings something up, I give her that safe space, but I don't want her to remember this long term. So we do not. It's not our dinner discussion.
You said that she'll just tell you. You don't have to ask.
Yes.
What are some times when Grace has told you?
I think this calls for hearsay.
Before I go on that, you've said Grace brings this up,
Yes.
same subject matter?
Yes. And it does not change.
I'm sorry.
It does not waver. It's the same to me when we discuss.
Court will overrule the objection. You may answer.
So, that's the reason we don't, there's not a lot. I said that because she's said the same thing so many times. There's nothing to, I just say, I'm sorry, honey, that's bothering you today, or, we're going to say prayers for Alana tonight when we pray, or I just say something to, give her that comfort and that safe space, but, she says the same thing. So it's not anything that's oh my gosh, there's new info.
I'm gonna direct your attention. Do you remember being at McDonald's once when Grace said something?
Yes. So I was taking her to get her hair done. We stopped at McDonald's on the way, and an ambulance went in front of the McDonald's, and she said, "Hey, Mimi, you know what that is?" And I said, "Yeah, it's an ambulance." And I'm paying the lady, kind of half paying attention. She's like, "There was an ambulance at my mom's house when she killed my baby sister." I was like, "Sorry, what do you say, right?" I'm sorry, honey.
Tell me that again.
She said there was an ambulance that one time at my mommy's house when she killed my baby sister.
When she killed
My baby sister.
That's her exact language?
Yes. And I just, when those things happen, I just deferred it. I'm like, you want some ketchup? I just try to change the topic.
I have no further questions.
Any cross?
Thank you, Judge. And then the last thing you just said that, when Grace was 3 or 4 years old, she stated that her mom killed her baby sister.
Yes.
I want to talk to you about the video that we saw. The judge asked you some questions before we saw the video about, did you talk to her about anything that happened the day before, right? But you weren't with her the entire time before hearing that. Is that correct? So let me ask a better question.
Okay.
Because that was a confusing question. Grace initially went with her dad's family, correct?
Yes.
And so right after the incident, you did not have her.
No.
Okay. And so she was with her dad's family for almost a whole day. Is that fair to say?
No, I think she went over there that evening. I don't know because I was in Florida, so like
Sure.
I was catching all this as I'm trying to travel.
So
But I got her the next morning.
she was around other adults for some period of time, though.
I don't know who she was around. I wasn't there. I mean, I'm assuming an adult was with her.
We would hope that she
Yeah.
was around some adults. And you also know she was around police officers and things like that before she got to you, correct?
Yes. I mean, I'm assuming so. I wasn't there.
I want to talk to you about your relationship with Deja outside of Grace. I know they're kind of intertwined for you, right? Because
Yeah.
you met her when she was pregnant with Grace. But when you first met Deja, like, you kind of became a mom figure right away for her. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
And you helped her get set up after her boyfriend kicked her out, right?
Yes.
You tried to get her jobs. Is that correct?
Yes.
And after she had Grace, you continued to help her financially,
Yes.
right? And even though David warned you, don't do that, you still continued to do that.
Yes.
So you were very close to Deja.
Yes.
And then to kind of piggyback on that, you were close to Grace when she was born as well, correct?
Yes.
Like, you took Deja to all her prenatal appointments, correct?
Not all of them, but
A lot of them?
yes.
You'd pick her up and drop her off when she needed things,
Correct.
right?
Yes.
And you were even in the delivery room when Grace was born.
I cut her umbilical cord.
And you cut her umbilical cord. So that's pretty close.
Very.
Starting out from the beginning. And then she actually went home with you and David, right?
So Dan and I were living separately. Or no, when she had Grace, we were living. Yes.
So she was from minute one, she was with you.
Yes.
Fair to say? Okay. And then even when Deja kind of moved out into Grandma's house, you're still getting Grace all the time, right?
Yes.
And you're Mimi to Grace,
I
right?
am.
She called you Mimi?
Yes.
Okay. And so this never wavered throughout having Julius and having Alana. You were still always very close to Grace.
Correct.
And in fact, Grace was your main concern when you found out all of this happened.
Yes.
She was your number one priority.
She still is.
Still is your number one priority.
Yes.
I want to talk to you about that night, and you said you can't remember if it was the same night or the day after that you talked to Deja about what happened, okay?
Okay.
She told you some things. First of all, she told you that they were thinking that this was Sid's at first, right? She also told you that she propped a baby bottle up in the baby's mouth, correct?
Yes.
With a pillow?
Yes.
Okay. And you were kind of aghast at that because you were like, you can't do that. right?
Yes.
And to her, she was floored that that's not something you could do.
Yes.
So she didn't know that you shouldn't be putting a baby bottle up in an infant's mouth. Fair to say?
Well, she had seen me do it, but I didn't leave the baby.
Right.
So,
So she had mistakenly thought, this is okay because I saw.
well, I don't know what thought.
Okay.
I informed her that was not a smart decision.
Okay. So she acted like she didn't know that wasn't a smart decision at the time.
Yes.
Okay. I also want to talk to you a little bit about, you said that she admitted to you using meth that day, right? And you actually spoke to Detective Hadley right after this happened. Do you remember that?
Mhm,
And it
yes.
was a recorded interview?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember telling Detective Hadley that she told you that she had done ecstasy?
So I think it was like meth and ecstasy, and those two drugs were interchangeable throughout some of these weeks. Because when David and I would chit chat, he's like, "Wait, what is it?" We don't actively have access to those things. So like both of those drugs were. So I don't know exactly which one.
Okay.
She
But
was
you do
using.
recall giving Detective Hadley's statement?
Yes.
And Judge, may I approach? Sure. Thank you. And I'm going to show you a copy of your statement. This is page 10.
Thank you.
And right here it says Speaker Jennifer Armstrong. It says, so that point this night she told me that she had done ecstasy on Sunday.
Okay.
Is that correct? Did I read that right?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's the day of this incident?
Yes. Or I don't know what day it was. It just said, if I said Sunday, I don't know what the day was. Was it Monday or Sunday?
Well, that's what I'm asking.
Okay.
you.
I don't know that. I don't have the calendar, so I don't know the dates in front of me. She just said Sunday, so is what my transcript says, but I don't.
Okay.
It was almost 2 years
Do you
ago.
remember her saying that she used the drug on Sunday?
Yes.
Not that she used it on that morning that the baby died?
Yes, she just said that Sunday.
Okay.
And then, I'm sorry, Judge. Oh, but it's okay if I go. I'm sorry. Okay. Now I want to talk to you a little bit about what happened after the incident with Grace. And we talked about you still got Grace after this incident happened, but she was still in Deja's care. Is that right?
At which point in time?
Between August and January. Between the time
Legally, yes.
Legally,
I
she
still
was-
had her most of that time. Because, I mean, at the very beginning of this, like, obviously, I was trying to let her deal with everything that was happening. So I still had Grace a lot of that first 6 months.
You were still getting her as you would have normally.
No more.
More. Okay.
Yes.
But she was still technically living with Deja. She had not been removed from Deja's care.
Legally,
right?
she had not been removed from Deja's care.
And then after that detective interview in January, you found out that both she and Julius had been removed from Deja's care. Is that right?
Correct.
And you immediately wanted to make sure that Grace was with you.
Correct.
And Grace, in fact, has been placed with you. Is that correct?
Correct.
And she lives with you now.
Yes.
And she calls you her new mommy. Is that right?
She intertwines.
Intertwines Mimi and new mommy.
Mhm.
Okay. And I think you had mentioned earlier that you guys are now in the process of adopting Grace. Is that correct?
Correct.
And one last question. To your knowledge, has Grace talked about this with any other family members, including David?
Yes.
Nothing further, Judge. Thank you.
Stay.
No further questions.
Okay, I'll ask.
Okay.
Who else did she talk to?
So, do you want me to tell you the story? Just two.
No, I don't want the story.
Okay, my
I just wanna
sister.
know.
She's told
And
my
my assumption is, again, the same kind of comments that she said to you about this incident.
very similar. So she's told my sister, both my daughters, my mom. She obviously, Grace doesn't understand the magnitude of this, so it's no different than her telling you that she had peanut butter and jelly, for lunch yesterday. It's just very matter of fact, like, this is what it is, and I'm like, no, we don't have to tell everybody, Grace. Like, she's very matter of fact with it. I would say most of our family at some point, she's made
Is
comments
she more
to.
matter of fact that if there's a distinction, you tell me whether that's fair or not. Is she more matter of fact that mommy killed the baby or that mommy used pillow?
That she killed the baby.
Does-
That's why she doesn't have
I'm
it.
sorry?
That she killed the baby. That's why she doesn't have, I mean, that's,
Okay,
She'll-
she says that more than she does the method in terms of using the pillow.
she does. And I think a lot of it too, being in school, she's got these peers that have siblings. And so like my niece just has a daughter and it's, oh, well, she's going to have a little sister. Well, I used to. It's those types of references that trigger that. It's usually triggered by something like seeing the ambulance or
Okay. Questions on the court's questions, staying?
No, Judge.
Defense?
Thank you, Judge. To your knowledge, has she told anyone outside of your family what happened?
yes.
Okay. And I guess I'm going to ask you because the judge's going to ask you anyway. Who was that?
So she goes to a private Christian school, and they have chapel every morning. And so at parent-teacher conferences recently, her teacher told me that every morning when the pastor comes in to do their morning chapel before school, that Grace asked everybody to pray for her baby sister that's in heaven, because of the same comment after.
And I just want to be clear, she's using the word kill.
Yes.
Nothing further, sorry.
No questions.
Okay. May she be excused?
Yes.
Okay. You may call your next.
Call Dr. Amanda Paul.